Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of the Better at Beach podcast. Today, Burik is going to share how to create impactful volleyball practices. He'll cover everything from building a strong team culture to rewarding progress and designing sessions that truly help players improve. But before we get started, I want to remind you about our upcoming Better at Beach camps. For men's AAA players, we'll be in St. Pete, Florida from January 17th. Then on January 24th to 26th, we have a camp in Loveland, Ohio, and another in St. Pete for women's AAA players. Looking ahead to February, we'll be in Salt Lake City on February 14 and 15. And in March, we're heading to Ozark, Missouri from March 7th to 9th. You can check out the full camp schedule at betteratbeach.com/camps. Now, let's get into the podcast.
Did you greet each person by name when they got to practice? Did you force the players to learn each other's names? That's an important one. Did you force the players to learn each other's names? Are you building a community within your club, team, or adult classes? If you don't have community, you don't have anything. Okay. Did you reward the players with bonus points for utilizing a new skill or play when you went live? So here's what happens when we introduce new skills, right? We do a drill. We teach our players how to do something. And then when we get to scrimmage, these players think, finally, the handcuffs are off. I don't have to continue doing this, or I can play the way that I want. And then the whole idea of the practice of them improving, of us working on those drills, it gets eradicated. So as a coach, you need to find drills that when you're going live, find ways or point systems to reward the new skill or the effort at the new skill that practice was working on. Okay. Questions for when the players arrive or when they're leaving is, did you ask the players a Ford question? Ford is the acronym, I think that's the right word, for family, relationships, occupation or school, and dreams or ambitions. So did you ask them something about their personal life so that you can understand where they're at, where they're going from, and develop a more meaningful relationship? Here's a really big one. Did you intentionally limit your talking and demo time? One of my pet peeves and one of the most common things that we see as coaches and coaches who coach coaches is people who spend too much time talking. I can tell you how to play volleyball for 100 years, but if you don't ever try to play volleyball, you will still suck at volleyball when you try it for the first time. So you talking at practice is not helping the players. Time yourself. Have an assistant coach time you when you're talking. I know that we think we have all of this knowledge inside our brain that has to be put into every player all at once at every practice, but having these long-winded pre-practice, post-practice, mid-practice discussions and pausing the entire practice when one person did one technique wrong and the others all have to listen to your story, it's not helping you. So did you intentionally limit your talking and demo time so that you can get them back into practice quickly and get them playing volleyball quickly? Okay. Another one that we do is, did you set specific goals for the team and for individual players? Were you thoughtful enough to choose and remember the things that each of your players are working on? And did you let the team know the goal of your practice? And then set goals for them, and then set milestones or places where they should be or how they should achieve so that they can know it. Okay. Here's another one that we have is, did you incorporate a conditioning element into a portion of the practice? For me, I know that some of my best practices were the ones where I felt tired. I felt out of breath. Like I had physical action. That was always a meaningful part of practice. And I think having some form of conditioning at nearly every practice is important. So for our company, did you incorporate a conditioning element into a portion of the practice. It doesn't mean that they have to sprint every single time that they lose a point or anything like that. It just means, was there an opportunity for them to become faster, become intentionally more agile, become intentionally, increase their cardiovascular system? Did you create or incorporate a conditioning element into a portion of the practice? Okay. And then lastly, there's a lot more on our coach's report card, but I just want to get through this. The next one is, did you create or mandate an opportunity for a player or a coach to lead in their power? So if you're a head coach, did you take center stage the entire time and then your assistant coaches just did whatever? If you're a head coach and you don't have any assistant coaches, did you create the opportunity for one of your players to grow, to become a leader? Now, not everybody, and you should know your team, not everybody is designed to or should get in front of a group and take over a practice. But when I said that word intentionally, in their power. Did you create or mandate an opportunity for a player or coach to lead in their power? Meaning, where are they comfortable leading and how are they comfortable leading? Some people like to be in front of the group taking control. Some people like to get things done. Some people like to be the glue. They enjoy when everybody's laughing or smiling with them. You know, they're part of the rowing team. They're not the coxswain who's yelling, right? So did you give them the opportunity to coach or lead in their power, which is going to make them a better version of themselves? They don't have to assume your role or your style of leadership, but some way to let them know that they can be leaders how their personality wants to lead. Did you create that opportunity for them? Okay, so that's about a few good things to think about, at least when you are considering if your practice was excellent, whether it was something that you want to recreate, or the practices that you thought were awesome in your life. We need to start by, just like we start anchoring with our players. In other words, when we're trying to help our players become stronger mentally, we ask them to go back to a time where they were fantastic and when they were awesome and they were successful. And then we have them recreate that mental and physical environment. So like the time when you won a championship and you felt like you were playing invincible, just as a small example, were you smiling? Were you angry? Were you flatlined? Right? We try to recreate their championship version of themselves just by putting in all of the elements that were there, including posture, breathing rate, internal talk. Now, from a coach's standpoint, what were the best practices you've ever run or that happened for your team? We've got to hunt down the elements that created those awesome practices and those awesome years and those awesome seasons. And then piece by piece, we reverse engineer that awesome practice by inserting the elements that were present in the practices that were awesome in our past. So I hope that makes sense, and I'm kind of talking in circles sometimes, but you've got to look back to your awesome practices, to your best seasons, and just start writing down the elements that made those happen or were present when those were happening, and then see if you can insert them into the future to intentionally create some fantastic practices and training sessions going forward. Okay. Now, for the players who are here in the Completed Coach Academy meeting where this is being recorded, we're going to discuss some of the things that we think have gone into making practices fantastic for our individual teams, and we'll see if we can start getting them written down. If you're listening on the podcast or on YouTube, cool. If you ever want to check it out and get into our live meeting and have these discussion points with us, then you can just head to betteratbeach.com/coach, and you can become a part of the Complete Coach Academy, where you get access to the complete beach volleyball training blueprint and our online meetings. All right. This is Mark with Better at Beach. Thank you so much. We'll see you on the sand. For everybody here, turn on your cameras. let's get back to business. Okay, cool. So we'll start with John, if you're willing to volunteer a little bit, John. I want to just ask an easy question, like one thing that you think goes into an awesome practice for you.
For me, well, I started off. Well, I've been coaching a long time, but I started off in beach just recently. And so I was really trying to use your blueprint, like exact. And what I was finding was that the girls were losing interest quickly because it wasn't quick enough.
Mm.
And so I had to switch gears a little bit and become more competitive right away, and then break down the skills as we were playing, which takes me back to how I coach indoor, is doing 6-on-6 and then breaking the skills down during the 6-on-6. So ever since I did that, incorporating your drills and some of my own drills, the practices became a lot more exciting, a lot more competitive. Yeah, so we do a lot of competing and trying to keep as many girls active as possible all of the time. I don't like girls sitting on the side shagging balls. Yeah, it's not fun for them. It's not fun for me.
Yeah.
So
okay, so it sounds like quick to compete is like one of your big keys to making an awesome practice.
Yes,
I love that. I think some of my practices, when you start seeing the energy go down, especially with guys, it just goes, let's just get them competing. Like, let's just throw 100 balls in the air and say, match to 21 and just say free ball, free ball, free ball, free ball.
Yeah. Lots of wash games, lots of serve and a toss, serve and a toss, serve and a toss, serve and a toss. Quick. And the energy usually goes up right away.
Great. Cool.
Yeah.
Anything else? Anything that you've watched from your coaches, or you've had assistant coaches, or you've seen other practices where you're like, I don't want to do that with my future teams, with my future clubs.
I don't have an assistant coach, so I can't watch an assistant coach yet. I'm working on it. So if you know somebody that's willing to work for little money, live in rural Virginia, then let me know.
Some VB people.
Yeah. So, yeah, I haven't. I'd have to search I'm so concerned about what I'm doing that I don't really worry about other people's.
Okay. Matt, have you ever been a part of practice where you got bored, or you were like, this is kind of wasting my time and I don't really like it?
Yeah, there's a few coaches, I'm not going to say any names, out in Hermosa that I really wrestled with their training sessions, whether that be too long of lines, or you do like 2 reps and then you're standing in the back of the line, or you're the one initiating on a box for a while and you're just exhausted. You're just like, I'm hitting over and over and over again. I don't know how much more I can get from just hitting off a box. And so I have a very short attention span. And so for me, I'm like, I need something new. Like I have this down. I've done it. I've done my turn. There's always, in every drill, there's always that one spot that can be more boring than the others. And for the most part, and so whether that be targeting or initiating, for me, I just feel like there's, I need to switch up. And so whenever I'm a part of a big practice that has a lot of people in it, and I'm just standing in the back of the line, or I'm the target for too long, I get bored. And then another one, I was in a practice down in Florida where I'm probably not going to block too often. And it was me, 2 other defenders, and then 1 full-time blocker. And our first 30 minutes was spent on blocking footwork. And so for me, I'm like, I don't think I need this as much as this guy. And so I think you think about it differently as a coach too, where you're in that practice and you're like, I don't think I would do this for the first 30 minutes of a practice with 3 defenders and 1 blocker. So it throws me for a loop. Those are a couple examples, but I love the Brazilian motto of just again, and just you leave those Brazilian practices just drained, like you're calling it for a day. And so I did kind of have a good combo of technique. I was working with Megan Bergdorf for a while in Hermosa. Yep. And so like with how new I was to volleyball, that was intriguing to me. Like just I'm figuring out how the body is supposed to work on the volleyball court, and I'm okay with breaking it down with her when we're like 2-on-1, 1-on-1, and she crushed it. And then like I would go straight from there to her practice with Dan. And it was just the perfect combo for me because I got the technique from Megan, and then I went over to Dan, and he was just like, again. And it was the best way to spend my days. So, but yeah, there were some that I got bored in. Not from those 2, but from a couple others. I was just like, I could do much more with this time if I was by myself. Yeah.
And it becomes different for everybody, right? Like you also have to know the players that are in your practice, and then see if there's a different assistant coach or a way that you can speak differently to different learners so that they can all feel at least appreciated, touched, engaged. And then, there are some people that need the rationalization, like this is why we're doing this, and this is why you work. And there's some people that don't care why it works or whatever. They just want to start.
Yeah.
So you also have to like really learn the people around you, the people on your team, that are doing it well. Yeah. The talking practices I hated. I mean, we had Jeff Alzina, right? Jeff Alzina and Mike Dodd at our USA practices, and they've both got stories upon stories. I'm not interested in the stories. I'm interested in like getting back to the game. So at some point, like when Jeff was coaching, and I'm not saying that he's a bad coach, I'm just saying his stories were too long. We would talk in the middle of practice, and then by the time more than 50% of your practice is doing hip flexor stretches on one knee, like you've got to pick up a physical like view that says, all right, they're kind of like bored. They're not ready to physically engage anymore, but it was just like, okay, I've got to do something with this time. And I was starving to improve. So then I just went into full mobility sessions anytime we had a chit chat. And we did the same thing. We like relentlessly mocked my high school coach for his super long post-practice meetings where he's like, okay, we had a 2-hour practice. Now we also spent 20 minutes talking. Like, why didn't we spend 20 more minutes playing? He was great at connecting with players, and his practices when he's practicing, they're high rep and always competitive. So he manages to get to like the New York State finals every time. But then the pre and post talks are just like, we could have had 20 more minutes of your brilliantly designed practice.
Yeah. I spent this past indoor season coaching with Jake Elliott and his wife. And his wife, do you know anything about his wife?
Not much.
Okay, so she played indoor at FSU on a full ride. She played all the way around as a middle, and so she was a baller in indoor. And so now I call them the king and queen of volleyball in Charleston, South Carolina. They're just bosses. But whenever it comes to indoor practice, they're almost complete opposites. Where like Adria is very big in the technique and like building that, taking time with the same side of the net stuff, and then Jake is just like, let's just get them playing, like high octane, let's go. And so like whenever me and Jake would be in a huddle with our JV team, it was always just like, hey guys, even for like a full minute timeout, hey guys, lock in, get back out there. And that was it. And then you come into Adria's and she's just like, all right, this and this and this and this and that and that and that. And it was such a good combo of both. Especially for like juniors who are like trying to learn the game. And then Jake's just like, let us just hit at them on a box. And so it's just so funny to see them go back and forth with it. And then me and Jake would just always look at each other, hey, high octane.
That's good. And it probably represents like your styles too, like what you would want in a practice. And often we coach like that, and we forget that the way that I learn is unique to me. It's not universal. So me creating this, while it's good and it's important that I've actually written stuff down and I'm trying to recreate at least from an experience of standpoint, I also have to recognize that, hey, this isn't where everybody's at, and this isn't what everybody needs. You know, when I started making videos for Better at Beach, I was like, okay, advanced short ball passing techniques for 2-on-2 volleyball. And, you know, we got like 100 or 200 views on YouTube. And then you realize 4 years into it, dude, we got to make more how to bump videos. How to bump a volleyball is what most people are looking for. So like where you're at is not where the majority of people are at. And you have to recognize that and always like either slow yourself down or speed yourself up depending on that. And so the fact that most coaches like try to get all of their knowledge, all of their current knowledge into their players in one practice, know where they're at and what they need and what questions they're asking themselves at that moment, right? And don't go way too far beyond that. Or if you decide to, like we did with our Long Beach camp, every time I like started saying, okay, this is where this technique gets, I'm like, guys, I'll tell you it just because I'm here and we're meeting, but like, you can really just like push this out of your mind. So this will just be like a little, theory session, but you're only going to use this when you start getting into the playoffs of open tournaments. And then I would go into this. I was like, so you don't need to know this. This is where it goes. So it's interesting, but then like wash it out of your mind. And let's get back to what we need right now. And yeah, where you're at is not where everybody's at. And the faster you can recognize that, the better it is for your coaching, leadership, and content production.
Especially our JV girls.
Especially JV girls. Yep. We've got Selton is in here, and he actually just finished up a camp in New York, and after 22 hours, he's apparently not had enough volleyball. And Nicole, if she's around, from you two guys, so we've only got like 10 minutes left, and I'm not sure if you're listening, Nicole, as well. But I just want to hear from your guys' experience of volleyball, because I know you guys both played a lot of volleyball. Things that you can pick out that created awesome practices, or things that were present when you guys were a part of awesome practices, and then things that were present in practices that you absolutely hated or you felt turned your team or your teammates off.
Jeez, you're going to give me a prep before?
Never.
Think about that. So let me start with the first part of the question. Can you repeat the first part, and then I'll go to the second part?
Yeah. What's been present in practices that you were a part of where you're like, man, that was an awesome practice?
Yeah.
Was there one thing or one part of it where you're like, yeah, that was definitely there when I was in a good practice?
As simple as it may sound, y'all kind of talked a little bit about it in terms of the type of people, but reps. Just getting a lot of reps, but not just reps just because. Reps that have value. And what I mean by that is the coach or assistant coach or whatever is giving you information as you're doing the reps, right? And so instead of just doing reps just to do reps, you're doing reps and then correcting and then doing reps, right? And so it's kind of training into the right form, I guess. Okay. That's something I've always appreciated, because then it doesn't feel like I'm wasting my time and energy. It feels like it's going and it's valued and it's valuable.
Okay. If you were to suss out like the differences between what you would vote for, high reps only, high reps and feedback, like where would you be, or what would you error between? More feedback or more reps?
More reps.
Okay.
Because I think there's only so much feedback, because if you have too much feedback, then it just starts to get disorienting. and then you can't focus as much on getting better on one of the feedbacks, right? So feedback is good, but I definitely err more on the side of reps of a smaller amount of feedback.
Cool. Okay. What was present at practices that you like hated, or reasons or things where you're like rolling your eyes at the coach? You're like, come on, man, let's get going in one way or another.
Exactly what you just said. Let's get going. When things just take too long, when you're like, everyone's there, and maybe they're just going with the flow of the rest of the team, where the team is slow, and so they're slow to kind of get practice going and get moving. I'm like, I'm just wasting time here. That's always pretty annoying to me. So I'll probably try to like go on hit against a wall, or I don't know, do something where I'm trying to get myself going instead of just sitting there.
Cool. Thanks, Dalton.
Yeah.
Nicole, if you're there, I'll give you kind of like 3 seconds to answer. I know sometimes you just listen because you're busy at work. But...
Yeah, I'm here. I do use that podcast a lot, so I would say, let's see, things that I really admire. I coach little kids a lot, so a lot of structure is needed. Like when you bring them in, say like, I need you all to stand in a circle and put your hands at your side, or like just little things like that where you're telling them exactly what you want them to do, because I found a lot of little kids have never really been told what's expected at practice. So a lot of structure is really important to me in a practice. And then also just like the pace of the practice, just making sure it's like age appropriate and something that they can handle. So like older kids like to play more, younger kids probably need more like actual practice time. You can't just throw like 12-year-olds on the court and tell them to like play 6-on-6 usually. So that would be my two like things where I know that coaches are doing a really good job. Things that irk me are throwing kids in a drill and then not coaching them, like just like setting the drill up and chucking balls in. I'm somebody personally who loves a lot of feedback, so I like to provide a lot of feedback, and sometimes I think, well, you know, if you're not providing any feedback, I think there's a balance there, but if you're not providing any feedback, why are you getting paid to like coach? A parent could probably like look up drills and run it and be just as good. So that's probably my biggest pet peeve as far as practice goes.
Cool. Thanks, Nicole.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bummer to see people not engage. You know, they're at practice, but you just kind of don't feel their energy. And the thing about that is it can be individual as well. You could feel like you're coaching a ton, but somebody on your court can feel like they haven't been coached, and then they'll get that same vibe or that same negativity, like I'm not being coached. And so it's why we focus. And one of the things in our report card that we didn't mention was, did at some point you mention each player by first name? Like, did everybody feel touched or appreciated or seen at your practice? Because if they don't, or vice versa, if they feel like they don't like the spotlight, like, did you kind of take it easy on them? But are you paying attention to each individual, and do they know it? And if you were an athlete and you ever felt ignored at practice, or like you weren't seen, you started losing faith and passion for the game quick. And so finding a way where, like, if there's one name or a few names that you don't think you mention enough now that we're talking about it, and today at practice or the next time you are at practice, paying attention to the names that don't typically get all of the noise in your gym or on your beach, then go ahead and, start exposing that and start saying them a little bit more often and giving them some more high fives and giving them some more spotlight. Okay. I think that's barring any other questions, we're going to cut that meeting here, and everybody can go start cooking their Thanksgiving feasts a couple days early. Any questions before I head out?
Thanks. Just wanted to say thanks. Sorry, at work and swamped today, but always good information. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Megan. Thanks for coming. All right, guys. Toodaloo. Have a great holiday.
See you guys.
See you next week. Well, see you in 2 weeks. I will be in the Punta Cana, Dominican Republic, all inclusive. So if you guys want to come, I know that we still got a couple cancellations. So if you want to come hang out, some people couldn't come. We got some injuries late and everything. But if not, catch you on the flip side. Bye.